Over to you, Ian.
Thank you. Very excited to be here. Today we're going to be talking about hyperscaling open source AI, how small teams can out-innovate big tech. So what's the news this week? A 60-person AI startup, 2.5 years old, got purchased for $1.3 billion, which is kind of unheard of and really speaks to a change that's happening in the industry and in the world. And underlying that is a simple idea. And that idea is that hyperscale happens on technology transitions. When you think about the tech giants today, you look at the stock market, you see Google, you see Microsoft, Meta, NVIDIA, all of them were small companies and small teams one day, and they scaled beyond what they started out to be. And they did that in the context of a transition, whether it was personal computing, or it was the internet, or it was social media. They grew on the back of massive change. And the application of AI and ML today is an example of that next layer of change. And it's on the order of compute. It's on the order of steam. It's on the order of combustion power when you think about the societal transformation that is happening when you apply AI and ML, when you multiply the ability of the human mind. The second idea to think about as you think about this technology transition is the opportunity from open source. And if you're a small team, if you're a startup, you're a services provider, this is massively important. A leaked memo from Google pretty famously put out saying, we have no moat. So Google is concerned that its approach to AI, spending billions of dollars on these data centers and farms, is not the only path forward. In fact, open source was really starting to outcompete these mega models in many different ways. And what you see is the rise of organizations like Hugging Face. These are communities of open source developers innovating on AI around the world faster on many axes than the tech giants can move. And they're learning how to train things 10,000 times faster. They're learning how to take these server farms and reduce them down to laptop computers or even personal phones. And it's a new frontier of innovation that really levels the playing field and lets small teams innovate in a way that was previously exclusive to those tech giants. The third idea I want to share with you is that AI is shifting from model-centric to data-centric. We had all this innovation in these foundational models, in new ways of doing things, and as we sort of open source those designs, and as soon as everyone catches up, we realize data is the actual differentiator. Over time, those models will kind of be about the same, and data is going to be all the difference. And that's an opportunity for the smaller organizations because you can be closer to the specificity of that data than the large companies can be. So let's show an example. This is OpenAI, and we're asking a very domain-specific question. This is a data-centric question. We're going to say, please summarize the changes in DFAR regulations in 2019. And OpenAI comes back and does an okay job. It recognizes DFAR is very domain-specific. It's the Defense Federal Acquisition Regulation. If you're going to sell to the Department of Defense, you have to follow these rules. It can't tell you what the rule changes were, but it can at least identify the topic. That's okay. That's a starting point, and that's the state of the art in big tech right now. Well, here's a different approach. This is Google Bard, and the difference with Google Bard is it can connect to live AI services, live web services, and bring information. So it does a little bit better and can bring back summaries of what changed in this DFAR regulation. So this is the two leading tech companies in the world, trillions of dollars of value. But let's look at what a startup can do. So Ask Sage has been around less than 1 year, and it is bringing back in its results specificity. It's saying here, not only do we understand what the DFAR regulation is, but song and verse on exactly the case numbers of the changes that are happening. Now, how is it able to do that? It's because it uses specificity. It is bringing back those results in the context of what's called a contracting officer. So in the Department of Defense, there's people whose full-time job it is to implement these regulations as they do federal acquisitions. And in addition to the context, it's enriching that information with data from acquisition.gov, from the Department of Defense. It's not just the internet, it's additional data sources. So this is a startup less than 1 year old that is doing things that the tech giant that are out of reach for the large general purpose engines. And that is incredibly important and relevant to anyone building and scaling these opportunities. The fourth idea to share is that data control and vendor lock-in issues are holding back a lot of innovation. So everyone, a lot of the small companies, they're jumping in, they're using every AI tool, but the big companies with a lot to lose, they're really concerned. And here's why. Here's the architecture right now that is kind of in the industry. I've got my users and my systems, and I've got my digital hub and my workflows. Where does work get done? Where do I have my conversations? Where's my intellectual property and my standard operating procedures? That really constitutes your competitive advantage, that intellectual property that you have. And that is what is powering the vendor's AI. So you're going to go out and get these AI models, and this is the fuel that drives the engine. But here's the architecture. It's vendor controlled. So I, as a company, as an enterprise, have to give over my intellectual property to these organizations that are going to have my IP in order to get the AI benefit. The customer still controls the users and in-house systems, but the vendor-controlled architecture has low data control for the customer and is high vendor lock-in. And that's what holds back a lot of organizations. You'll read about in the news. They've stopped AI, they've banned AI because they can't have that control. So what the opportunity is, again, coming back to open source, again, coming back to bring control to communities and to customers. Customer control really unlocks that next level of opportunity and innovation. So let's take that architecture that was from the vendor and let's rewind and say, wait a minute, I control the users and systems just like we open sourced AI. I want to control my intellectual property. I want to control my digital work. And I want to run open source AI models. And within this perimeter, no data leaves. I control the entire stack myself. Now, we still want to make use of those large compute. Still want to use the services from the Microsofts and the Googles and the OpenAIs. But now they're those vendor-controlled clouds. We're going to be able to choose among them. We're not going to be locked in. We can go and select what works best for us. And this customer-controlled cloud has high data control, low vendor lock-in. It's a different approach. And the thing to understand, just as open source AI models are unlocking opportunities for small teams, these architectures unlock opportunity for everyone in tech. So take that consumer control cloud and realize you can enhance it with that domain-specific information. Just like Ask Sage went deep into federal regulations, you can do that for healthcare, you can do that for financial services, you can do that for defense, you can do that for government. And there's a massive opportunity to out-innovate and hyperscale in those domain-specific AI environments. And that's the opportunity that open source is bringing to those communities. So here's some examples. Domain-specific transcription and analysis. You can use Zoom, you can use Microsoft Teams, you can get these transcription services, but your IP is controlled by that vendor. With open source, audio calling, transcription, summarization, integration with the rest of your data and the rest of your conversations can happen under your control. And as a small team, you can take this open source platform and add significant value because the whole platform can be modified. Another example, sentiment monitoring and analysis. So how are people thinking and feeling in an organization? You can't read 10,000 messages a day, but you can find out how people are feeling, what's important, and narrow in. And all that sensitive data can be controlled by the organization and by that small team. We can synthesize that sensitive data. We can give summaries of security incidents and issues and bring that all together and really accelerate workflows such as incident response, such as remediations. You have an outage, you have a breach. You can bring this data in at lightning speed, keep it all private, and do things that were never possible before. Now, both these architectures will exist. You're going to have vendor-controlled systems. You're going to have customer-controlled systems. And there's opportunities for both. What open source does is it opens up new frontiers of opportunity. The last idea I'll leave you with is that this is really a generational change. And the hyperscale that is happening with AI today is on the order of that combustion engine, on the order of steam power. And when you think about why did a 60-person startup get purchased for $1.3 billion, there's only one reason. It's because the company buying that startup thought it was worth even more. So if you want to get started today, Mattermost is making its contribution to space. It's an open source platform to run all these AI models in secure environments, to create, if you're a small team or startup or a services provider, you can create your domain-specific AI that you control on an open source platform and deliver that to your customers completely free on the platform. So thank you so much. My name's Ian Tien. Feel free to follow me on LinkedIn and Twitter, and check out openops.mattermost.com to learn more. Thank you so much.